Okay, we're live. Hello, welcome to the Cinema Savvy Movie Podcast. I'm Chris Garner, joined with a triumphant return, of
Very
Tayte today. It's good to have you back, man. This is kind of strange having you back on the podcast. So before we begin, just explain to everyone where you've been.
I'm in Austria. I am in a very weird log cabin looking thing right now, and I know you can't see outside, but outside there is about a meter of snow, and I'm here being a ski instructor. So I'm teaching people in German, teaching people in English, just having an amazing time. And I'm going to be out here until probably very early April, and then I'm probably going to be heading back to Britain.
Sweet.
But I've finally managed to discover a good internet connection of some sort.
So, and we just said before we clicked go live that we hope it holds out for the rest of this review.
Yes,
but this review itself, as you can see from the title, this is a review on Singin' in the Rain, the 1952 musical classic. I mean, this movie is just so iconic. And Tayte, this was actually you who suggested we should jump on a review for this one. Obviously, today the news broke that Debbie Reynolds has passed away at the age of 84 following a stroke a day after her daughter Carrie Fisher died. I mean, it's what the family's going through at the minute must be just tragic.
Reported around that her final words were, "I want to be with Carrie."
Yeah,
is completely heartbreaking. That is just. She was planning her own daughter's funeral and had a heart attack. Like, that is just, seriously, you can't get much worse than that.
Yeah, and you also said as well before we went live that with Debbie Reynolds' death, that marks the last person out of the main cast to passed away now for Singing in the Rain. So there's that with it too. But we wanted to get on a review of this, and actually we used to do this quite a lot on the channel where we'd review older movies. We used to call it Film Club, but with schedules and stuff we kind of threw that to the wayside. But it is nice to jump older reviews like this, and especially ones like this, like classic movies. I don't think we've really talked enough classic movies on this channel, and I know, Tayte, you're a huge fan of classic movies.
Classic movies.
Did you grow up with this movie and other movies like this, or did you get into it more once to film studies and things like that?
Fun fact, I've never actually done any film studies of any sort. I really am just a movie fan that just kind of adapted into the film kind of critique lifestyle, shall we say. But my sister was always into musicals when she was younger. She went on to be in Billy Elliot on the West End, which was phenomenal. After finishing that, she went on to be a tap dancer, and she's now a world champion tap dancer. So tapping and musical are just in the family. It's just one of those things. And because of that, like, it's always been kind of part of the culture. So I've always kind of almost been, stick something on the TV, stick a film on, oh, it's going to be a musical because my sister wants to watch it. It's going to be a tap dancing thing. Because, like, just because. And I just kind of grew up on this kind of thing, like all of the old films. Like, I just kind of, oh, where's it? Sorry. Family calling me, go away.
Sorry, Tayte's family. But yeah, no, for me, quite the opposite, actually. Although I'm a movie fan, I really do struggle to get into old-timey movies like this one. The acting style is very different to what we get today. For example, it's very rare, very, very rare you'd get an actor of like today's caliber in terms of what they bring to a role in that kind of old style. It was a different time, obviously. It was the 50s when this movie came out, so clearly things are going to be different. But when you've got people going like, now listen here, you dizzy dame, like that kind of dialogue of how they talk, I could never get behind it. It all seemed very, very theatrical and stagey and didn't feel like a movie. Like, one actor would say their line and then another actor would say it right after. It was almost like directly from the script. It didn't feel naturalistic. It felt very stagey. But I mean, inherently, there are many scenes in this that do feel like you're watching like a Broadway musical. Like, you are almost there. For
Yeah.
example, watching this, you could easily see this on stage, and it has been put on stage. So I don't really have that problem with this movie. I do have problems with this movie. That's more so the narrative and how the music is linked with the narrative. But I've done a little bit of research on this. I've done my homework on this movie. I rewatched it earlier today, and I've read some of the trivia. And I guess we'll go for like initial opinions on it just to get us into the review, and then we'll have a chat from there about it.
Very quickly, I just want to talk about how it has influenced film, because I
definitely
think it is one of the most influential films of all time.
And it's actually the 6th movie to have Singing in the Rain feature in the film, which it blew my mind when I read that. There are a lot of older films that came out before it, I think in like the 20s and the 30s and things like that. There's a whole list of them where they've used the song before, and then Singing in the Rain kind of made it popular, which I thought was great. In fact, a lot of the songs in this movie, apart from 2, are actually songs used from older musicals and older films.
Did not know that. But
this
one's the one that's famous.
Yeah, this is the one that that got it right. Really, this is the one that everyone remembers.
If you think of musical, this is the film that comes to mind.
Yeah,
like as musical films. I mean, some people modernized would think Chicago would be the only one that I could think of.
That won a lot of Oscars as well, didn't it? I think that won Best Picture for that year.
Didn't it?
Yeah.
It should not have won Best Picture. Even though I'm a good fan of Lord of the Rings, but Lord of the Rings really should have won it that year with Two Towers.
Yeah.
Really should have.
I think they kind of, with Return of the King came out, they kind of just give Return of the King all the Oscars, every single one you have.
But yeah, no, going back to this, like there are films still being made now, just like La La Land, which we've been just waiting for and adoring from a distance. Just kind of hoping that, oh my God, can I see it? When can I see it?
And I know that La La Land's been out for about a month in the US and probably other territories as well. We don't get it until the 12th or the 13th of January, I believe. So it's not far away. It's the last couple of weeks.
It's getting no release in Austria. It's got
isn't it?
It's got a release in the Vienna Film Festival, and it's not getting a wide release.
Tayte, we need to find a way to do a review. We need to find. we agreed to this. We made almost like a blood pact before you left that we'd review that movie.
I know.
But no, you're absolutely right. And I mean, as I said with La La Land, I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but that movie does look like a complete love letter to these kind of style of movies done in a contemporary setting. And I think we both agree that that film's probably going to be really bittersweet. You've listened to the soundtrack already. I haven't. I want it to be a fresh experience when I see the movie. But the famous movie that comes to mind, in my opinion, with this is A Clockwork Orange, where you have Malcolm McDowell breaking into song. I think he ad-libbed that, actually, Singing in the Rain. And Gene Kelly publicly ignored him because he hated how he tied that song to the really graphic rape scene from A Clockwork Orange, which I thought was great. But it works for both the movies. But so let's get into this one then. So Singing in the Rain, 1952, as I said. It was nominated for 2 Oscars. Sadly, didn't win any. It was nominated for Best Actress in a Supporting Role with Jean Hagen, and Best Music Scoring of a Musical Picture for Lenny Hayton. And I don't believe it won any. It won a Golden Globe in the USA for Best Actor, which was Donald O'Connor. It was nominated for many, but as we've seen in the past with films, they don't always have to win Oscars to be as iconic as they are. And this film has its place on many lists of best films ever made. Quite rightly so, I would say. It's not... It's so difficult with old-time movies. I wouldn't say it's one of the best ever made, but I can see why it's iconic. I can see what it did for cinema and why it has that reputation that it does have. So let's get into it then. Where do you want to start off on this one, Tayte?
I want to start off with... it's a musical. Let's start off with the musical numbers.
Okay.
There was a lot of musical numbers in total. I'm just going to very briefly, from the top of my head, remember them. You've got the fiddle song, which was the first song in the film.
Yep.
Then you have... There's a song before Make 'Em Laugh.
There's quite a lot. There's a song called Temptation, which is instrumental only. All I Do Is Dream of You, and... yeah, I think what I'm looking at here, I'm looking at a list of the songs. I don't know if these are in order of the movie.
Maybe not.
I almost can guarantee that they're not.
Let's go with the main ones. You've got the fiddle song, which was the tap dancing number with the two guys with the fiddle at the start. You've got Make 'Em Laugh, which is my favorite song from the film. Even though I do love Singing in the Rain and Good Morning, which are the other two major songs.
Yeah.
We then have the Broadway song, I'm going to call it.
Yeah, I can't remember what that one's called.
He keeps on saying something all the way throughout the song. It's like, gotta dance.
Yes, yeah.
Gotta dance. And then he dances. And you've then got I Would You?
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, there's one more, which is sung at the end, which is not I Would You?
Yeah, it's like it's some kind of reprise at the end. For me, the music is really iconic, but where I have a problem with it, and this is what I love in a musical and this is what I hope La La Land is that a good musical has music that propels the story forward or propels the characters forward. And so many times in this movie, the music like just detracts from the plot itself. And you'll find times where, because in my opinion, my favorite stuff in this movie is all like the film history of, moving into talkies. It's set in the 20s where Hollywood moving from silent pictures to talking ones. And as a result of that, a lot of actors at the time went out of work. Their reputations were ruined. Their careers were over because their voice didn't match their on-screen persona. And the film deals with that. And that is my favorite stuff in this movie. Because I love Jean Hagen's character. I think she's fantastic. She's so ditzy and she's so enjoyable. And she actually, and she actually has my favorite line in the whole film. It's when they've initially screened the film to the press, and then they're all walking out and saying it's terrible, and she's just like, "I liked it," because that's just like me with films. Like I always go against popular opinion, so I connect with her character in that moment. But yeah, the songs like Singing in the Rain, Good Morning, and Make 'Em Laugh, they're all fantastic songs and they work in the movie. However, the biggest culprit of this, in my opinion, is the final Broadway song, where it goes on for so long, and then by the time it snaps back to the narrative, I've almost forgotten where the jump-off point was. It's almost like when you watch Memento for the first time and you're trying to work out where the last scene ended. I have this with this movie. So is it a good musical? Yes, the music is good in it.
I remember the song. It's the phonetical song.
Oh, Moses Supposes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great song. And that was actually one of the two songs that was originally written for this movie. So you do have good music in it. However, I do think that maybe Gene Kelly, who also helped direct the movie as well, I'll just bring up the name who he co-directed it with. He co-directed it with Stanley Donen. I think he might have got a little bit self-indulgent in some of the song and dance numbers, and they do tend to go on for a little bit too long. But if you're into that kind of Broadway style musical, that won't be a problem for you. However, as I said, where I fall on this movie is that I find all the film history stuff so entertaining, and I love seeing Jean Hagen's character. I wanted to see more of her. That when it does cut to the music, I'm like, oh, can we go back to the plot?
We both have a problem with Gotta Dance, the giant Broadway number. But here's the thing. I liked the start of it. I liked where it was going with the kind of him jumping between the different lines of work and making his way up through the thing.
And he's on the conveyor belt scene.
Because the whole film was going to be based around him doing that, him getting hit by like a sack off stage, and then him going into a dream sequence where he would do the period piece. I like that. Where it went wrong was when they introduced just this random woman that he would dance with.
Oh, Sid Charisse, I believe she was. Yeah. They do this whole ballet number, don't they? It
had absolutely no connection to the original plot. There was no reason for it being there. And it just kind of broke up the entire dance scene that was taking place. It slowed the pace down, and it slowed it down for not like a short amount of time just to slow it down, just to build up again. It slowed it down and kept slowing it down. It got slower and slower and slower and slower. And then as soon as that scene had ended, like they just kind of burst back in, but it had no impact.
Yeah.
Like the scene felt like it went on for about 20 minutes when actually it was only about 10 minutes long.
Yeah, and that's the first time watching. This was my second time watching the movie today. I had a problem with it then. I still have a problem with it now. It just goes on for too long. It must be over 10 minutes easily towards the end, and it really just drags the ending out.
Gotta Dance is 10 minutes long. I'm pretty sure of it. I'm gonna have
But
a look.
I think a problem it has as well is that it's followed, it follows two previous musical numbers in very quick succession. So you kind of want a little bit more plot in between, and you don't get it. You get this big bombastic number. But that being said, I mean, the dancing itself, the staging is all fantastic. Like, you can't fault that about it. It is amazing. When he's on the conveyor belts and people are passing him by, like, you just think about how many hours they must have rehearsed this to get it right. And Gene Kelly himself was a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Dedicated, down to the fine details. I can't remember the word I'm looking for. He was very precise as a dancer, as a director, and he even made Donald O'Connor was very intimidated by him and said, like, he'd always worry on set in case he got something wrong and he'd get shouted at. And even Debbie Reynolds as well, who couldn't really dance at the time. I mean, she was 19 when she did this. It's kind of a neat parallel between her and Carrie Fisher, that Carrie Fisher was 19 when she started Star Wars as well. But she couldn't dance, and in the Good Morning sequence, she had to be taught by Fred Astaire because Gene Kelly had shouted at her. Fred Astaire was around the studio at the time. He found her crying, and he says, I'll teach you how to do it. But since then, Gene Kelly went on record and he says, she did really well. She copied us fantastically, and she was a very hard worker. Going from IMDb as well, it says that she had to get 3 buses to the studio every day, which means she had to wake up at 4 a.m., take 3 buses to get to the studio, do all the filming, and then come back at night. Sometimes she'd even sleep on the set. So it does, yeah, completely work. And I mean, it just goes to show how much hard work she put in, and you see the final result, and it's amazing. Like, you wouldn't know that she couldn't dance in that movie, and she just had to copy from the people around her. But I mean, she was surrounded by incredible talent, so yeah. I guess you just pick it up by osmosis in the end.
I feel like this film was just kind of a massive display of talent in different areas. You've got just brilliant acting in some areas, you've got brilliant dancing, you've got brilliant singing. I'd say that the one thing that lets the film down is the pacing.
Yeah. And I think that's down to how long the musical numbers go on for, and also subconsciously when they're not related to the plot itself.
Kind of old school cinema, and it's the one thing that I could have against Citizen Kane, The Third Man, and Maltese Falcon. All of those old films is they didn't have pacing right.
No.
And like, I can't really talk anything bad about Citizen Kane, film ever created, but like, there is, towards the end, I think between 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes to go to 10 minutes to go, the scenes just seem to drag on a little bit longer than the rest of the film. As the only critique I could actually think of the entire film. It's flawless. But films like The Third Man, the second act of The Third Man goes on for a little bit too long before the big reveal. The Maltese Falcon, I'd say the first act is a little bit too slow, and then it kind of builds up very quickly towards the end. But with modern cinema, we have such fast pacing. Yeah. Like, everything has to be, okay, scene finished, scene finished, scene finished. And that's maybe pacing too quickly. And maybe in the old days, that would have been perfectly fine because people would have been used to it. But because of the faster editing we have nowadays, the shorter takes, the shorter scenes that we have nowadays, like, maybe it's just because we're in a different generation and we look back and we think, okay, maybe that was a bit too long. Maybe in the olden days we would have loved it. And now people would think, oh, this is way too fast. The editing is just too much. It's moving on too quickly. It's very little narrative and stuff like that.
And I think that's why films like these are important and should be preserved, because although we may go back and, pull out all these critiques like the pacing and things like that, editing styles, there is a scene in this movie which is hilarious with the editing where I think it's during Moses Supposes where, what's his name? Donald O'Connor sort of like facially mimicking the guy. And then it cuts to another angle and it like repeats because they didn't, get the editing right. Yeah, but I think it's important to have films like this because they are important of cinema, and you can go back and you can see how films advanced or in some ways may have even regressed depending on your opinion of it. But yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And should we get into some of the musical numbers in it now then, or?
I thought we'd already talked about them, but I guess we'll talk about the 3 big ones.
3 big ones, yeah, let's do it.
Let's start off with Make 'Em Laugh.
Yes. Now, I have knowledge on this one.
Go for it.
Donald O'Connor was a smoker, and he used to smoke 4 packs of cigarettes a day. Oh yeah, this was the 50s where people smoked, my friend. So they did the take, they did it all in one, and I think he said that he had to sleep for like 3 days afterwards because it was so physically exhausted. And you see that in the movie, like he is pratfalling, he is running up walls, he is putting himself through walls. And you just watch it and you think, like, if this was like on a Broadway stage, they'd have the amount of actors they have to get to rotate each night because they couldn't physically do this. They filmed it all, and there was a problem with the film. I think they hadn't got the aperture quite right on it. Completely useless.
Oh.
So they that to him like a week after or something and said, yeah, we're going to have to go again. Do you mind? But like absolute consummate professional, he came back and did it again. But can you imagine? Can you imagine just how disheartened you'd be after just putting your heart and soul into this musical number and all the footage is, you know, useless? It's useless at the end of the day.
It's just a very amazing scene because, like you said, it was done in one take, the entire thing. And like all of the things that he does throughout the scene, like he's trip falling, he's doing dance moves, he's tapping, he's running up walls, he's running through walls. The amount that he put himself through, like, and the acting that was involved in it was just incredible.
Yeah.
And that's probably why it's my favorite scene in the film. You've got the most iconic scene, which is the Singing in the Rain scene. Now, after rewatching this film, it's one of those scenes where it's a great scene. I love it. It's just one of the most iconic scenes in Hollywood. Doesn't really fit in the film, per se.
No, and I think I read that originally the song itself was going to be, in the original draft of the script, was in a completely different place. It was, I think, after they initially screen, what's it called? The Cavalier.
The Dancing Cavalier.
Dancing Cavalier. When they've initially screened that and they're really disheartened because people didn't like it, they were going to go to a cafe, and that's where they were going to come up with the idea of changing it into a musical. And then when they had that eureka moment, going to come out of the cafe, and that's where Singing in the Rain was going to take place. Rejuggled it in the movie, obviously, and it is kind of random, but because it has that iconic status to it, and I mean, parodied all the time, like Eric Morecambe and Ernie Wise is probably the most famous one. If any fans out there watch British comedians, that scene is just so iconic, and the blocking of it and how it looks and just the atmosphere of it, that I kind of let it slide because it's so great. As well as the fact that Gene Kelly at the time, it's rumored that he was ill at that time during the day of filming, and some say he had a fever of over like 101 something. Filmed it all in one take. He improvised most of it. They only had the movements choreographed for like the first part of the song and the end part of the song. The director wanted to send him home because they didn't have it planned. He was just like, I've got this. And he did it. And they did it in one take. And like so many of the songs in this film, and how the camera moves as well. Like there's no, you talked about the editing earlier, there's no frantic editing, but how it's filmed, like how the camera moves with the dancers, it's perfect. And like a camera will zoom in, but it's so far out that you get in all the dancing, all the action, all the choreography. And that's what you want, because if this was done today's standard, and I really hope La La Land doesn't do this, if you get like weird editing that just detracts from the song itself, you are almost just like a spectator. You're just watching this amazing talent play out on screen.
No, I completely agree, and it's one of those scenes where you just go, yeah, it doesn't really fit in the film, but by God, is this one of the greatest scenes in cinema of all time?
Yeah, it absolutely is, definitely. And I guess the other musical number we could talk about is Good Morning, right? That's the other big one. I talked about
saying that Reynolds couldn't dance. I can see that now, because she didn't really dance in the song that much.
No, they kind of do the whole handbag, dancing around the handbag kind of thing, don't they?
But the tap dancing in that scene and the setup for the scene works perfectly well. I mean, the song holds up because it's still played on Radio 2 every single morning.
And wasn't it used on an advert? I think like a TV advert in the UK.
maybe. I mean, I haven't been keeping up with radio, but
Mm.
it would have been very interesting to see what happened on Radio 2 this morning.
It's definitely one of the most enduring songs from it, especially when you hold it up to
Yeah.
Singing in the Rain. It's just so cool. It's an absolute earworm. Like, I heard this earlier, and then I was just humming it around the house straight afterwards, and that's a sign of a good song if it does have that effect on you. I wanted to talk about something else as well. Oh, you talked about like how we perceive editing now and pacing in movies. I guess you can draw a parallel to that in terms of the historical setting of this movie as well, because there's a great moment in this film where you watch it and it's the test audiences where they said, this is going to be the new big thing, talking pictures, note the words that are coming out of my mouth and the perfect synchronization of them.
Yeah.
And then people are going like, this is a trick. There's a guy behind the screen. This will never catch on. This is just a gimmick. And it's hilarious to watch because we are always resistant to change in cinema, usually. We see that now with like technology, for example, in films where we're saying like, oh, this doesn't look right, this isn't going to work, or like higher frame rate, for example. In however many years, in 20, 30 years, we might look back and go, okay, well, we were all stupid at that time. Like, this looks loads better. We don't know. But it's just interesting. And as you said, like, I think when you first watched this, you didn't pick up on all those film theory things and how it ties in.
One of the film which perfectly sums that up is, I mean, we thought that horses without carriages would be worse, or like carriages without horses, and then you think, okay, they're talking about cars there.
Yeah. And seeing the old-timey cars in this is great as well.
Yeah.
Especially where they do the shot where they've got like the steering wheel with like the projected background behind them and they're just doing this. They're not even looking at the road, they're like talking to someone.
That scene towards the start where Gene Kelly's character is running away from the mob crowd and then just so happens to jump into Debbie Reynolds' car. I think someone mentioned that in one of the comments on our Facebook group, just saying that was one of the scenes that just kind of stuck with them.
Yeah.
Just the reaction on Debbie Reynolds' face, and then the calling for the police officer, and then the kind of realization, oh Christ, this guy's famous, and stuff like that. And
the stunt work in this film's fantastic. Like, I don't know how much Gene Kelly did himself. Like the bit where he gets punched in that Western and he flips over the bar.
It's in the 50s. He probably did all of it.
Yeah. And it's so good. It's so good. And the choreography, just everything. Perfect. I want to talk about my favorite character in this movie. I'm actually trying to find her name now desperately. Lena Lamont, played by Jean Hagen. This woman's amazing. She's easily my favorite character. She brings so much personality to it.
We need to revive that greatest villains of all time list.
Yeah, we do. You know what? I think she's a tragic hero in this because, you know, she's built this career. She's been like a puppet of Hollywood. She's trying to maintain a name. I mean, we reviewed BoJack Horseman. We know how this shit goes down. And at the end, she's just publicly humiliated for Gene Kelly's new bit on the side in the movie. And you never know, he might find another actress that comes along who's better than Debbie Reynolds, God bless her, and then dump her as well. He's a bit of a Casanova in this movie.
That would be a very dark tone cast upon the movie.
Yeah. We're all about that dark tone, Tate. What are you talking about? Give us the bittersweet endings.
That's too much, man.
It is a little bit too much. But no, she's amazing. And as a Disney fan, there's the film Princess and the Frog. There's a character in that now I've rewatched this, I can really see where they've got the inspiration and the personality from her in that Disney movie. There's even a scene where she completely dresses the same as well, in like the bright pink dress, the same kind of hair, the annoying, grating voice, but bubbly and ditzy personality. And they must have took inspiration from this. They had to have done when I rewatched it again.
Just remembered another song that's in the film. It's the weird song that's advertising different dress styles.
Oh yeah, with like the really dated like monkey fur comment. Do you remember that?
Beautiful Girls song.
Yeah. and guess what, guys? She's over the age of sweet 16, and you're like, oh, this is creepy. But it's the 50s, okay.
No, it's the 20s, okay.
Oh, it's the 20s. Yes, even more prevalent. God. But no, there was a comment like she's wearing.
I found in the film tennis rackets were not like that in the 20s.
0 stars. Fuck this movie. But no, it's just so good, and the characters. are interested. Now, I've seen a lot of people saying that Gene Kelly's not a great actor in it. I didn't mind him in it. He's kind of got the big Hollywood grin. He's got those Hollywood teeth.
Yeah.
Just he's flashing in every single scene. I think that Donald O'Connor is phenomenal in it. He's easily one of my favorites. He's right there, just below Gene Hagen for me. And you know, Debbie Reynolds too. That shot at the end where she thinks that she's not going to get any credit for providing a voice for these films. Yeah. And then he gives her the credit at the end. She turns around. She's got tears streaming down her eyes. It's a beautiful shot, and it's a beautifully acted moment.
Actually, what is your favorite shot of the film? Because mine was surprising, because it's always been, before rewatching it this time, and this isn't because of like any bias, because Debbie Reynolds has sadly passed, but I personally think the best shot of this film is the one in the empty studio where the lights have just been turned on, and it's a silhouette of her and Gene Kelly, and he's hanging off in exactly the same position as he does later when he does the lamppost twirl.
Yeah.
And this time it's on a ladder with her peering over the top.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great shot. Out of the two, it would either definitely be that or the one I just mentioned. I really want to say a scene from Singin' in the Rain, but that would be the really cliched thing to say, so I'm not going to say it. So I'm going to go with either one of the Debbie Reynolds picks there, because she's such a great character as well. Even like as soon as you're introduced to her in the car, she's like her daughter who played Princess Leia. She's very headstrong, she's feisty, she'll fight a corner. You get the very creepy, I want to say 50s, but 20s mechanic of the guy just like, arm around her, I'm going to get really close and invade your personal space because I find you attractive and I love you. I've met you for 2 seconds. And she's like, get away from me.
Oh, gee, well.
Yes, yeah. Oh, there were so many G's in this film.
Oh, gee.
So,
can we not long?
Go on, sorry.
Yeah. No, seriously, the shot that I just mentioned, the one with the lights being shot, that reminds me of the planetarium scene from La La Land.
Yes. Yeah.
And it makes me really want to watch La La Land right now.
Yeah. And I'm sure that if people are watching this that have already seen, we've already had some commenters earlier on in the year that have already seen La La Land at film festivals.
Please. No spoilers for La La Land.
They say it's everything you want and more.
If you put spoilers to La La Land in any comments.
Oh, we've actually had some comments. The British chick has said, "Can we talk about Kathy hitting Lena with the cake?" Yes, we can, because that scene is hilarious and she plays it magnificently.
It's just one of those unexpected scenes. Like, when I was watching it this time around, I was literally like eating food right next to me, thing of crisps, and I was like, grab a crisp. She's just been pied in the face. Like, I completely missed it this time. I was like, oh, what did I miss? But I remember it from the previous. Oh yeah, okay, yep, the pie to the face, and just the acting from all three of the actors in that scene, just kind of the immediate reaction, and like, I'm sure that they had so much fun with that, and it would have been hilarious if there was more than one take, but I don't know how many takes that took. But
I love the fact where she's just like, I was aiming for Gene Kelly, like like I can't help it. He moved.
He could have very easily broken the fourth wall and just like, I was aiming for Gene, okay?
And also a comment, I wanted to bring this up too. We talked about how some of the songs don't really gel with the narrative. The songs were actually written before the movie, and a plot was made to connect all the songs together in some way, shape, and form. I think for some that we've mentioned before, they achieved that. For others, not so much. So it does kind of lead it with a weird experience. Also, I wanted to talk about the whole dubbing of oh god, I keep forgetting her name. Gene Hagen's character.
Yes.
It's very interesting because I'm reading this straight off IMDb now, so I don't mess it up. It's got, in the Would You number, Kathy Selden, Debbie Reynolds is dubbing the voice of Lena Lamont because Lena's voice is shrill and screechy. However, it's not Reynolds who is really speaking. It's Gene Hagen herself, who actually had a deep, beautiful, rich voice. And in the song, the singer, the voice that you hear of the singer was Betty Noyes, who had a much richer singing voice than Debbie. So in effect, you kind of have, what would it be? It would be
irony.
Yeah, no, it would be Gene Hagen dubbing. I'm not even going to try and connect that. That's like Inception
Okay, yeah.
levels right there. No, that'd be Gene Hagen dubbing Debbie Reynolds, dubbing Gene Hagen.
And then being dubbed herself when she sings.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's absolutely amazing.
In Japanese for the Blu-ray release.
Yeah, oh, that'd be amazing. Actually, I did find this, and this is kind of heartbreaking as well, but this is so often the case with a lot of older prints. The original negative of this film, the original print, got caught in a fire and has sadly been destroyed.
A lot gets caught in a fire. They've lost a lot of records. Which was the recent record vault that got? Was it either the BBC or Aardman lost their record vault?
Aardman lost a lot of their work. Doctor Who back in the day lost a lot of theirs as well. The lost episodes, which they're bringing back now in like weird animated versions, but that's going off on a tangent. Yeah, but we've seen Inglourious Basterds, so we know how flammable old film prints used to be. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much all I can say on Singin' in the Rain. So closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts. This is a classic, iconic, inspirational film. It has its downsides, but all films do except for Citizen Kane. It is just a phenomenal piece of work that has inspired multiple directors and loads of people just to fall in love with the musical genre. It is not the greatest musical of all time, but it is the most recognizable musical film of all time. And because of that, it can be linked to every single film that has a single musical number in it since.
Yeah.
And just like to know now that all of the original cast have sadly passed, well, not all of the original cast, but all of the main cast have passed away, is really saddening, because it shows that we are kind of moving on from that old Hollywood and we're becoming more modernized.
Yeah.
And it's just really, it's sad when you look at it that way, especially when we were talking about the way that the films were edited. I mean, back then it would have been fine. It would have been amazing. Nowadays, we think it's a little bit too slow.
Yeah.
So we really are moving on with cinema, and it's always good to look back, which is why I really enjoy doing this review.
Definitely. And to look forward, sometimes you have to look back. And I'm slowly working my way through more movies like this now, getting through some of the old classics. As I said, I do find it hard to get attached to them in the way that you perhaps do. I do struggle through them sometimes, but nevertheless, I do see why they are regarded as classics, and Singin' in the Rain is absolutely a case of that as well. If I'm going to recommend this movie, I will say this isn't a movie for everyone. If you do like musicals and you do like your big bombastic Broadway type things, chances are you've probably seen this movie already, but I would definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't, because the musical numbers are fantastic. They're beautifully filmed, and the talent involved is second to none. And yeah, with like Debbie Reynolds passing away, but like she has an incredible legacy of not just this film, but many other films too. And that goes for all the rest of the cast in this as well. So if you're a film fan, definitely check it out. It does have its rightful place on all the greatest films of all time lists. And I enjoyed it a lot more the second time now. So this will definitely not be the last time I watch this movie. I'm sure I'll watch it again in the future. Yeah. But check it out. You know, you never know. You might enjoy it. But it is one of those old-timey movies. If that's not your thing, then I'd probably say stay away from it. But yeah, that'll do it for our review on Singin' in the Rain. Be sure to comment, subscribe, and let us know what you thought of this movie, your favourite musical number, and anything you like. Please do drop us a comment. Let us know. Tayte, it was great to do one of these again. Yeah. Hopefully we can get in a few in your downtime, sort of like we did tonight with this.
Funnily enough, tomorrow we are doing something. I'm not sure whether you remember that we did plan this. No, you've forgotten.
We did plan something. What are we recording tomorrow?
We are recording tomorrow. We are recording tomorrow the best and worst films of the year lists.
Is that tomorrow we're doing that?
That is tomorrow we're doing that.
30th. Oh boy. I still have 2 movies I need to watch from this year. I better get that on that tonight. I still need to watch The Nice Guys, and there was another one that I wanted to watch as well. I'll figure that out. I'll get those watched tonight.
Watch Hail Caesar, and I'll tell you why. Hail Caesar has a tap dancing musical number scene starring.
Oh, really?
And it is amazingly hilarious, and the entire film itself is about old school Hollywood.
So I've got to watch Hail Caesar, I've got to watch The Nice Guys, and I've got to think of that other one that's slipping my mind right now. So that's my night sorted. But right after this, pretty much straight away, I'm jumping on a live stream for a Battle of the Brackets episode. To conclude Star Wars month, we're doing our picks of the greatest Star Wars scene of all time. We are including Rogue One, so spoiler alert for that, I guess. So I better get ready. I best change into some kind of Star Wars garb for that. And yeah, so thank you for watching our review. And until the next video, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.